I would say that at a macro level, we are clearly not competing with the general run-of-the-mill people who grew up in or outside of New York City, want to go back to New York City, went to school in New York City, or LA, or San Francisco. I think this statistics outdated now, but I saw not too long ago that something like 90% of the population dies within 50 miles of where they were born, or maybe it was 100 miles. I mean, we go back to where we're from, largely. So at a macro level, we're not competing with the larger cities like New York City and LA. Now, I would say at a micro level, with individual candidates, which is where our focus should be, I think. Individual, think of it, I like to think of it in marathoner terms. You run in feet and you dream in miles. And, every single aspect, every single talented person and talented business we draw into the area is going to draw people with them. Just for example, this year, 3 guys who are going to be joining us in our summer program next year and hopefully eventually transitioning to our firm, one from Virginia, one from Vanderbilt, and one from Duke, none of whom lived any closer to Northern Ohio than Toledo, are coming back with us. For one of them, we were competing with him for Chicago and also just generally in the Midwest. For the other, he was interested in San Francisco and Columbus and here. And for another one, it was D.C. here in New York. So you have to define on the smaller levels, on the smaller groups that you're attacking, what your competition is. And then you can distinguish Cleveland a lot more effectively than saying, well, sure, we're not Philadelphia, we're not New York, we're not D.C. So I would take a little issue with your question that I think at a macro level, we just can't compete with those cities. On a micro level, I can and have had very long discussions with people who were choosing between, do I want to go to New York City for a couple years and maybe think about coming to Cleveland or going to the Midwest later, or do I want to start my career there and start my life there? So I think you can attack it both ways.
Dan?
I just wanted to throw a few numbers in on the response to that question is in terms of who we're competing with. You may have seen the recent ratings by Career Builder of the top 10 cities for new graduates. And actually, Cleveland was 5th out of the top 10 in terms of opportunity based on the number of young adults, the number of jobs that require less than 1 year experience, and the rent levels in the community. The cities above us were Indianapolis, Philadelphia, Baltimore, and Cincinnati. The cities below us were New York, Phoenix, Denver, Chicago, and San Antonio. So while it's not a direct competition with them, when you look at some of the factors that come into play, we are increasingly competing fairly well. There's a lot of work to do, but often in ratings, Cleveland does not come out looking very well. So I felt compelled to point one out where we did look pretty good.
Right. I mean, I do have to say though that I can't understand how we'd ever have any problem bringing talent here. I mean, all you'd have to do is walk them outside on a day like today around downtown, right? I mean, there's no problem there.
I do Chris Seper, go right ahead.
I think it's important to put into context where location matters. Because, I mean, we can talk about Cleveland, we're talking specifically about the downtown and putting that into context. MedCity News just reported another Israeli company is coming to the city. They're a company called Early Sense. They make medical device technology. They didn't come here because they think Cleveland's cosmopolitan over LA. They came here because of money, which is why people come. They got a grant from the Global Cardiac Innovation Center, and that requires them to have presence in Ohio. And their research partner is the Cleveland Clinic, so they're going to move here. Now, when I interviewed him, he says, well, we're going to have a research presence there. We are going to roll out, the beginning of this year, we're going to roll out our product. I said, well, where's your sales and marketing staff going to go? It depends on the money, right? They're talking to venture capitalists, and if they find VCs locally and they find good partnerships locally to do that distribution, then they're going to grow more jobs here. And then I think at that point, once they get the money, once they get all these other interests taken care of, that's when they're going to step in and find it. I mean, I came to Cleveland for the opportunity. It was the plain dealer, and if the plan I was between New Orleans and Cleveland, I chose luckily. And so I could have, what was the cosmopolitan city? It was New Orleans, but I picked the opportunity, and the same thing probably for many of us in this room. And so, I think with great opportunity for downtown, I'm going to segue into opportunities in medical. There's real challenges on its face to downtown getting more a piece of the medical market. Residents, young medical residents, are not your typical young urban professionals. Many of them have families. If they live if they're working for the clinic or UH, they're obviously going to move east a little bit, and they're going to live in Cleveland Heights, Shaker Heights, and so on and so forth. It's tougher to pull them downtown. Again, they're going to be a little older. Many have started families. In the same sense, the medical industry here is a startup industry. 3, 5, 8 person companies that are looking to prove out their product. They locate in University Circle because there's BioEnterprise, an incubator there. They can coalesce together. They can share and cut in half the cost of 5-figure, 6-figure laboratory equipment. There's clean rooms there, all those different things. To attract those kinds of folks downtown, you probably would have to change the mission, build yourself a lab downtown or a clean room or other things like that that are really dynamic and difficult. The plus is that you have the medical mart moving downtown, and there's going to be a whole different type of company that is going to come down to look for office space. Secondly, the old adage in Cleveland when it comes to the medical industry is they start here, they perfect it here, and then they move to the West Coast or the East Coast. I think that the real opportunity is once these companies flourish into 20-person companies, 30, once they outgrow their incubator space, that is when downtown has a chance for its audition. And they have a chance to take the infant companies that have grown up a little bit and draw them down so that they don't move out. Now, it's also a tough sell for a lot of external factors. There are fewer IPOs. Most companies are now growing through acquisition, so Medtronic will often buy a company that's in Cleveland and then it goes away, and so there's all kinds of, you really have to pick and choose. But I think the opportunity here is to target companies as they grow. You can make a very convincing case for a company to move downtown because they can afford some of their own, they're going to need their own lab equipment and own space. They're going to have a sales and marketing force. They're going to have things beyond research geeks, and they're going to need space to accommodate that.
In just a moment, we're going to be asking for questions from you folks in the audience. You better have some or I'll call on you anyway, so please begin to think. And before we do get to that, I wanted to ask one other question, David DeBord, of you, and we talked a little bit about this earlier. When I think of coming to Northeast Ohio as a place to work, it might be because of my age and my situation with family. I think about neighborhoods where I can raise kids, and really is a tremendous city for that. The number of suburbs that you can choose from, as well as neighborhoods in the city of Cleveland to raise a family. What about the idea that attracting young talent like you're looking for, what about the idea of transition? The idea of selling them downtown as a place to come as the 25-year-old self, and then there really is an awesome standard of living for you to move out to. And how important is that when we talk about the regional net in selling Cleveland?
I think it's very important, and I think it's an aspect that, as a former outsider, that I thought Cleveland did a very poor job on with me. And I try to and have encouraged people that I work with to do a better job. I routinely, when we bring in people who say go to Cleveland State or went away to some other school, but they grew up in Shaker Heights, they know nothing about the West Side or know nothing about the East Side. No single part of Cleveland, in my own personal opinion, is big enough to accomplish the mission that we're looking to do, which is a vibrant city where we can all live, work, and raise families in safe and affordable environments. And there needs to be a connection, a center, and to connect every disparate aspect together. Downtown's a natural one, and I think that's part of what we're talking about today is using that. We also recruit because plenty of people have careers before they go to law school or are married or whatever. So we recruit from a broad, diverse age range as well, and people who are looking for different things.